Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I am Retty 4, this is Evan1195.
All aboard!
This is Gensarai 1.
Professor Dumbledore enjoys chamber music and 10-pin bowling.
And
Which is apparently what they call it in the UK.
yes, that caused some confusion. Not realizing there are
Yeah.
two types of bowling, or at least two anyway.
I don't know.
I'm sure we'll find loads of those listed throughout this book. Today we're covering Chapter 6, The Journey from Platform 9 3/4. It's one of my all-time favourites of this book for sure, because it's the establishment of the Golden Trio, the fateful meeting of Ron and Harry, with Hermione coming shortly after in the iconic compartment of the Hogwarts Express. Basically this chapter is just the journey from the platform to Hogwarts, with it closing on the meeting of Hagrid and the first years. So we started this up with the month-long gap between Diagon Alley and Harry's first day of term. So already we're separated from the films here, because in the films you just kind of make the jump, and supposedly time could have passed,
Which doesn't make much sense in the film, considering the timing and the timeline and all that.
But it's understandable that they cut this out, because effectively this is just a month of Harry getting the silent treatment.
There's not much going on.
Month of the silent treatment. The Dursleys are kind of a mix between anger
which
and
he
fear.
acknowledges is better than usual, but it's still weird.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not sure if this is worth.
Like, not talking to me, which is better than usual, but yeah.
Yeah, if nothing else, it's depressing, because can you imagine being sat in a house and just being ignored by everyone in it for like a month? That's not fun.
No.
But yeah, he gets to the point where at the end of the month where he's talking to Dursley, asking, Can I get a lift? Can I get a lift into London?
And Uncle Vernon responds with,
fine. Basically take him in, because they only bothered because of Dursley's little tail, which had to be surgically removed because it did not return to normal after a brief period.
Which is very strange. That's going to raise a lot of questions. Just these Muggles coming in with their kid with a pig's tail. We never get any follow up on that.
Well, presumably they just assume it's some sort of like mutation or abnormality. It's not like he's actually a half pig or anything.
How does a human mutate and have a pigtail? That's not a mutation. That is literally magic.
It's an abnormality within enough limitation that I think it could be believed, if very, very strange. I don't know.
I don't know.
I also imagine that because the Dursleys are clearly somewhat wealthy, Vernon Dursley probably just threw money at the problem until it went away.
Yeah, private hospital instead of the NHS, no doubt.
I guess it's just odd.
Yeah, but Harry gets his lift to the station, and the Dursleys in horrifically just dump him on the platform and say, "Look, no platform, bye."
After very politely helping Harry wheel his trunk over to the platform, and then saying, I don't see platform 9 3/4. It doesn't appear to have been built yet. Have a nice term.
Yeah, I like whenever, especially in the early chapters of this book, whenever Harry's like, why is he being nice? It always leads into some sort of payback or spin on it, that he's like, oh, of course, you couldn't have just been nice for this moment, could you? It's just a continuation of that here. We get another departure from the film as well, very slight one, but I think it's worth noting because it kind of affects Harry's character. He specifically doesn't ask the train guard about the platform. He doesn't ask, where's platform 9 3/4, because he's got enough common sense to realise that it's not visually here, so it's clearly going to be not something that Muggles don't deal with. Whereas in the film, he outright asks and gets that strange response, which I like. It's kind of a little bit of a very slight departure in the character. Shows you that he's got a good head on his shoulders.
True.
Yeah. Which is actually one of the problems in the book that I was kind of highlighted by the Dom's Lost in Adaptation review of the Harry Potter series, where pretty much all of the intellectual heavy lifting was given to Hermione. All of it.
Yeah, they do that quite a lot in films adaptations in general. You want to focus the primary traits onto a specific character and rarely dilute them across. For example, Ron has a lot more to do in the books than he does in the films, because in the films he's a lot more focused on either the heart of a scene or the typical comic relief kind of stuff. He's a lot more present outside of that in the books, I think.
Well, the books just kind of like the books present each character as having their own, distinct traits, but it doesn't come at the cost of the other character's ability to function in those same situations.
Yeah. It's like Hermione is book smart, Ron is street smart, whereas I'd say Harry's got empathy.
For sure.
Yeah. But at the same time, they could all walk in those realms to a certain degree of, competence.
Yeah, it just depends on the context at hand and what kind of area we're dealing with, because they all have their own little specialties. Ron and strategy.
In fact, in later books,
detective work.
We're even in later books, we're even shown outright that there are even some areas of magic that Harry exceeds in more than Hermione in terms of knowledge.
Yeah, definitely. Defense against the
with their newt scores, right? Is that what they call it? Newt scores?
Yes, owls and newts.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, just making sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so
it's been a while.
yeah, that's one of the best things about doing these. We get to refresh our experience of the world. But yeah, so Harry turns up and talks to the guy, asks about Hogwarts. Doesn't go any further than that because he doesn't want to be an idiot. And basically waits to see what he can do, because there's no other way of getting on the platform. He wasn't told. Bit of an oversight from Hagrid there.
Kind of. Have any of you guys ever been in that situation where it's like someone gives you enough directions to get you to the general vicinity, but not enough to where you could get to exactly where you're going? It is beyond frustrating. It's like when I was reading this, like I could empathize with Harry so hard because I've been in that situation.
Yeah, it's the first day of a new experience, but not only just a standard one. You're going into an entirely new world, and you've been left on your own and to fend for yourself. And it's an excellent life experience, but it's definitely horrible at the time. I would have done exactly the same thing as him. I would have been okay. Wait for someone else to do something, because there must be more. I'd be backing off and waiting and watching, which he does, because obviously the Weasleys come along, and as we mentioned earlier in the kind of chapter reviews, Rowling is excellent at capturing the kind of heart and core of a character as they're going to be kind of portrayed moving forward in the very first introductory scenes for them, 9 times out of 10 anyway, which we get with Mrs. Weasley and the Weasleys as a whole. They when they turn up and Harry tries to watch them to see what they're doing to get onto the platform, we kind of hear the general discussion and interactions between them, and it's kind of an iconic moment all of itself, especially for how we think perceive these characters, because Mrs. Weasley is the doting kind of middle-aged mother. You got the little the back and forth between the twins. Ginny's being an adorable little girl at the end, kind of I want to go. All of this is happening, and sealing what we will know their characters to be moving forward. I always appreciate that with these first early scenes.
Not to mention Percy's uptightness.
Yes, yeah.
With his prefect position.
Yeah, and it's nicely bookended as well, because this is obviously the first start of the scene, and then we go through the barrier and exit with the actual watching from the window scene, but we'll get to that in a minute. Harry basically...
Well, one thing I do want to mention is just a charming little anecdote. I'm the eldest of 3 brothers. My brothers and I look nothing alike. There's no way you would confuse any of us. Yet our mother mixes up our names all the goddamn time. And my response to this is always, honestly, woman, you call yourself our mother. Hi, Mom.
It's a classic.
You see, Callan and I both have sisters, so there's no chance of that even remotely happening.
It's a classic scene and moment. I mean, it's kind of, again, the example of the capturing of the early core of the twins, because this is them in a nutshell. Effective, they're always having a joke to crack, and they're always very funny. Again, we're moving into the next scene, we'll see that properly, but here is established with the whole, well, honestly, Mum, you call yourselves our mother.
And then we get the sequence of Harry, going up to Mrs. Weasley, asking about the portal, and him actually crossing through.
Yeah, this is the thing that I find most kind of relatable. The nervousness of having to go up and ask for help. It's a complete stranger. You're a kid, and you're like, oh god, I don't want to be embarrassing, and show that I'm not being able to do what I'm supposed to easily be able to do, apparently. But she's like, oh no, it's fine. You're clearly the first year. And she's obviously in her head thinking, oh, no parents must help him, because she doesn't tell him this, obviously, because she's not that obvious. But that's what she's thinking at the time, and it kind of shows you, again, who she is as a character as she helps him forward.
And I kind of like how she highlights where, like, she kind of says, like, when you walk up to it, you have to kind of believe that you'll go through it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's to me that kind of strikes me as like kind of a function of the portal, kind of like so like not just anyone could just like lean on it by accident and fall through, you know?
Yeah, precisely. It's
like if you believe you could go through, you will go through, but if you don't, you'll just
you need that kind of determined purpose, because otherwise every muggle would have been falling through it.
Which does say, I think that is a subtle nod to Harry's character by the fact that even though he is so new to this magical world, he is able to make that connection.
He's able to take that step. I mean, yeah, you can say that he's seen other people do it in front of him, so you know it's easier.
But this is him way, like all on his own. You know?
But at the same time, you're right. It is that kind of. It's a very nice stepping through the threshold into that larger world moment, and it's really nicely kind of wrapped around this kind of character introduction. It could have been just. You know, this could have been just an instruction on a piece of paper that he gets from Hagrid, or something on the ticket. Instead, she uses it to wrap this character moment around and introduce one of the most important families basically in the entire story, and it works. It's really effective. But we get the introduction of them here, and then obviously we move through the barrier. We get this
Hogwarts Express.
Yeah, the film did a very good job of capturing this moment as well. It always plays out the same way as I read the book for me in my mind. The panning of the great red train moving out from the perspective of Harry. He gets all the little chatter in the background of Neville, first kind of interaction with him, for the reader anyway, with him lost the toad, the shaking of head of the Gran. But yeah, it's a nice scene of capturing the cluster and buster of a train station. In that with that slight shunting into the magical side, because it's not the average train.
Well, the hustle and bustle of the train station is the same no matter where you are.
Yeah. Another little example of how the wizards aren't so far removed from us. Like once you get past the magic, they still put their pants on one leg at a time.
Yep, they're still people.
So Harry puts his stuff onto the train, and then he interacts with the Weasleys again. And it's something I actually forgot about until I reread this chapter. But the first of the Weasleys who kind of find out Harry's name and communicate with him on a first name basis are the twins, and I completely forgot about that till I reread this. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's an example of
because it's kind of another differential from the movie, because in the movie it's Ron.
Yeah, this is exactly the sort of scene you cut from a film, because in a book you've got more time and a more kind of realistic tint to what you're doing. With films, you have to cut it down to make it more streamlined and more character focused. I mean, for example, Ron is the more significant character, so you have the introduction be with Ron. Why would you waste the time on the twins when they're just side characters, But with a book, you can take that time because it's more of a. Again, it's not realistic, but the crafting can be more in depth and more in tune with what you would have in reality. Really, the films have to be a bit more artistically licensed, I guess. But I also enjoy the fact that they are just simply helping him onto the train. This is a simple. Here, let me just help you with a giant trunk because you're a kid and can't really lift it. So you got the nice kind of the kindness of the twins in force, because I don't know is Harry Potter at this point. This is them showing that they're just, this could have been any first year and they would have been helping them out. It's a nice little introduction on that front, but also it then gives them the reason to go back and talk to the Weasleys and have this interaction where they do know he's Harry Potter, and it kind of spreads around the family, and Harry can watch this from the window. And
we get Ginny being like, "Oh, can I go talk to him?" Yeah. That kind of sets up her little character trait for the next rest of the series.
Well, yeah, certainly
for fascination.
Yeah. The watching from the window scene is something I've always enjoyed, because you get like the now that the hustle and bustle of getting to the station is past, and they haven't got an immediate objective. You've got like the nice little family interaction, which really does kind of. This is, like I said, the bookend. This bookends what we saw prior. Yeah, definitely hits home. Because this is obviously the first major introduction of the family, and for anyone who's finished the series already, looking back, you can see how happy they are, and know that they don't ultimately get that end. Certainly not in the same way, anyway. Yeah. We also get the kind of proper introduction of the two greatest comedic characters, because this is the scene that really does set in the twins as the comic relief for me. She writes comedy well, and
I don't want to hear another letter. Another owl about your misbehaving.
Blowing up a toilet seat. Like, we've not blown up a toilet seat. Great idea, though, Mum. Thanks.
Yeah. That's like classic prankster comeback.
And again, they tie it. She ties it to the kind of kindness of the twins as well, because while obviously they're taking the mick out of Percy, and there's like, oh, you're a prefect, we hadn't heard, except every minute, all every day, all summer. But at the same time, Ginny's wanted to go and can't, and she's getting upset. And don't cry, we'll send you loads of letters. And then cuts immediately in with it. We'll send you a Hogwarts toilet seat. it's the humour of a family. That they're being kind. They're looking after the little sister, but at the same time they're still cracking jokes, and she's kind of half crying, half laughing as a result. It's a really heartwarming scene.
Personally, I just love the idea of Fred and George sending Ginny a Hogwarts toilet seat. And Ginny just to be snarky, installs the toilet seat in the Weasley family washroom when no one's paying attention, and basically just waits to see how long it takes for Mrs. Weasley to notice.
That or hanging on the wall, just like, I've got good brothers.
Over on her dresser.
Be brilliant. And you can always guarantee they did send her one as well, which I love. But yeah, also get the introduction of Ron, of course, the proper Ron. He's kind of got the mark on his nose being rubbed, and he's like, Mum, and it's just it's a nice farewell scene.
We get that for you. Yeah.
Classic mothering.
Again, classic. That's like a classic mother in media trope.
Definitely. And
let me help you with.
Yeah, Mrs. Weasley herself is a good example of the perfectly handled trope character, because she's not cliche by any means, but she definitely has those kind of staple characteristics that you would apply to a mother hen type character, and she's a
very good take on the classic archetype.
Right. She's cliche in the sense that she does use a lot of often used tropes, but it's spun in a way that makes her still relatable and interesting.
And Rowling does that for almost every character. We get, at least in the early introductions, we get she uses tropes and mainstay kind of more relatable traits to establish who a character is in that first scene. As I said before, attached to what they're actually doing. And then she builds on that afterwards. She lays a solid groundwork very, very quickly. Because these are only a very short, few pages, but they feel longer than they actually are.
Yeah,
you see it playing out in your head.
Which leads to Ron and Harry in the compartment of the train as it's chugging off. We get the whole asking him about the scar scene, and I like when Harry asks Ron about his family. Internally, he's thinking, "Oh, this must be the sort of wizarding families that Draco was not he doesn't know Draco's name at the time, but what Draco was talking about in the robe shop." Yeah, Madame Malkin's tailor. Thank you. And that is interesting, even though later we find out it's not quite that simple. But yeah, nice. But from his perspective, he wouldn't know because he doesn't know about the whole familial status thing.
Yes, yeah, which actually tied into the scene very effectively. That the fact that he doesn't know so much. This is everyone can relate to this. Obviously, this is everyone has that moment where they meet their one of their early friends in schools, whether it be on a journey towards it on the bus or walking or in the first classroom meeting or whatever. I met most of my current friends in my form from when I first joined secondary school, or at least the next few lessons. Homeroom you call it? I don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but yeah, so you have that relatability attached to the scene, but also then you feed that in with it's a new world, it's a new day, it's new people, and Harry his interactions with Ron is kind of like this is his first real friend because of the Dudley thing, so everything is being put through the lens of meeting this new person, this font of knowledge, and Ron's getting to his own chance to shine because he's getting to be this person for Harry. It's a nice kind of kindling for the fires of their friendship in this first book.
And it's interesting in the sense that like Harry is just astonished at everything Ron is talking about, and while Ron himself is just kind of like, such and such, or he's depressed. Yeah. Talking about his family line and all that.
It's again he's a rare example where it's almost exposition in terms of how he's explaining who he is and what his whole character shtick is. Rowling usually keeps it briefer because he's the main character. He gets more depth attached to him early on, and I like that it's attached to the fact that we've just seen this scene play out. Everything he's talking about, so many siblings that he has to try and shine out. Try and almost compete with them, and not really having a chance at that. The wealth issue, everything that's coming up, you can immediately understand because you've just seen it played out before you, out the very window that they're sat next to in your head. So it's it's very well executed.
And then as they're talking, the snack cart comes.
Yeah,
with the amazing. I love just the idea of I love the movie's representation of the snack cart with all the crazy candies and stuff. Like when I was a little kid, I wanted to see a cart like that so badly. You have no idea.
You go on a train in reality, and they just bring a couple of crisp packets and some nuts
or
and
some nuts
some
or
sandwiches.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, fine, thanks.
Nothing like that.
But in the book, he only gets a few, or one or a few of everything.
Well, he asks for Mars bars, but they don't have those.
Yes, which I found funny. But he also then just kind of gets a bit of everything because he doesn't know what he's dealing with and wants to try new things. But in the film, he asks for all of it, that created the meme of you what, mate? There are other people on this trolley. I love on this train rather. I love that idea because he does in the film he does just buy everything. He's like Harry.
Yeah, He says we'll take the lot.
Yeah, we'll take the lot. I was like, no, you won't, because there are other people who need to eat this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always find it
funny. Maybe you could assume they could just, the cart lady could just magic up, some more.
Presumably, but still.
Yeah.
I mean, if nothing else, they're not going to be able to eat it all. But yeah, so the introduction of the sweets themselves, it's almost a little bit of world building unto itself, and it was also establishment because
not a little, it is.
Yeah, with the
almost it is.
Yeah, with the wizarding famous witches and wizards cards obviously would be the primary one for the chocolate frogs.
And the birdie bots every flavored beans.
Yes, would you guys eat those? I would definitely be steering clear. I mean, not because everyone is going to be horrible, but I don't like the random pick and mix approach. I like to know what I'm eating ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That is simultaneously the most awesome thing ever, and the most repulsive thing ever, because they mean every flavor.
Yes,
I think I'd chance it personally. I'd be like, you only live once. And hey, you know what? They can't possibly be worse than the real ones that Jelly Belly made when the movie came out. Those things were horrendous.
Yeah, they were really foul.
You guys remember those? You remember those, right?
I do.
Yes, I do.
The chocolate frogs, on the other hand, the chocolate frogs were wonderful that they made. They were basically just Easter egg.
Those were cool.
Equivalents.
Well, you can't really mess those up, but their attempts at birdie bots were. Ugh.
Yeah, they were not nice.
Horrible.
The problem is that they were trying to incorporate the bad flavors described in the book when they should have just been sticking with, okay, let's just do every single flavor of jelly bean and leave it at that.
Post in the comments what your experience is with the real birdie bots beans. Tell us,
Yeah. Does anyone like them?
Yeah.
But we also get, more importantly, the setup of the Nicholas Flamel kind of
the cards with famous witches and wizards. Dumbledore.
Dumbledore's little diatribe on the back. Description of his great feats.
Grindelwald.
Yep, Grindelwald. 12 uses of dragon blood.
Which is something we never get
full
full.
exploration of. That's coming in the next film. In theory. Yeah, so that'd be interesting. And obviously the Tempin Bowling and what was the other one? Tempin Bowling and
Chamber music.
Chamber music. That was the one. Thank you. But yeah, so we get just that single one line of Nicholas Flamel, and that kind of feeds in, and you never mention it again until they figure out the
foreshadowing.
Yeah, basically, excellent foreshadowing. Again, it's the whole Sirius Black in the first chapter line that means nothing when you read it, but then later it comes or the big one, Regulus Arcturus Black. That was the biggest one of the entire series, really.
And then we get Harry's introduction to the moving pictures.
Yeah, which is amusing because nowadays that's not that big a deal. It's you've got like so many tablet things that have actual video.
Even the stuff we have these days aren't quite the same.
Of course not. But it's
they're
definitely
not actually pictures moving.
Of course, but it's definitely a lot less impressive than it would have been back then.
Impressive, yeah,
for sure. Especially as a kid in those days, because even the idea of a touchscreen tablet was beyond
Yeah,
scope.
I mean, this was the year 2000. Photomart was still in business.
And the thing we do have to remember is that while the movies evidently take place in the 2000s, in the books take place 91 through 97. So
Yes, always important to keep in mind, because stuff like in the films with the Millennium Bridge, that wasn't built when this was going down, and they blow it up in the film. Yeah. So,
but it made for one hell of a shot.
It did make for a good shot. Yeah, even though it involved the stupid damn smoke monstering. But anyway, that's for a later time.
We'll get to those later.
We get the arrival of Hermione. After the kind of introduction and discussion between Ron and Harry. Well, yeah, of course. Neville comes in, tries to find Trevor, which he's lost for the nth millionth time, and leaves, and then immediately comes back again like 2 seconds later with Hermione, which I found strange, because I can visualize in my head Hermione like, no, did you check this compartment? Have you checked this compartment? Oh, well, check this compartment, and just completely ignoring that. No, I've been there, from Neville.
But it also sets up her willingness to help others immediately.
Willingness to help others.
Her willingness to help others, but also the obliviousness with which she goes about it.
I get the impression throughout this entire kind of train sequence with her that she's very much trying to interact with people, because she's going up and down the train, she's looking in compartments, she's gone to the driver. She seems the type that she's very much wanting to find friends. She's just really, really not sure about how going about to do that.
And the other problem is that she's trying too hard. Like, that's the problem. She's never allowing any of her social encounters to play out naturally. She's always just turning it into, oh, we're talking? Well, now I'm going to lecture you about magical history because I'm trying to fit in with Wizarding Society, so I need to show off how much I know. But in the process, she's pushing everyone away.
She's literally going about things as if she's studying from a book, ironically.
Yeah, which is very in character, and I like that none of this is said. It's not saying that Harry doesn't take note of this. That she's clearly she's overcompensating or anything. It's just you can play around and picture it in your head that's how she's interacting with them, because of the type of character she is, and because of what we know moving forward later. She's extremely self-conscious about these things. So it's classic overcompensation. But Ron does not take to her immediately, as we know. So I hope she's whatever house she's in. I hope she's not in ours.
Yeah. Well, then that also introduces like the what houses they would want to be in.
One thing I do like to say is I do like Hermione mentioning that Harry is name dropped in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts and great wizarding events of the 20th century.
Yeah, it's nice to know that this stuff is being, actually catalogued, because he is going to be a famous point in history.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. And you can't just have everything be spread word of mouth, even something as, taking down Voldemort.
And obviously re-establishing the fact that she's very well read, because she's reading books that she just never has to, especially for first year experience. And
it's interesting, like a lot of students don't like read their textbooks before they go to the class unless they're really into the subject.
I imagine a lot of Muggleborns would be the ones to do that, because obviously, magic, it's a magic book. I can learn spells and just read through them and excitedly. And stuff.
Well, that's what Harry did. That's what Harry did.
Yeah.
That's how the chapter begins.
Yeah, definitely. But whereas the wizards, it's all a lot more mundane and normal for them. So they just, I'll just learn it when I go to school. That's what the school's for. It's the different play of perspectives is coming into this compartment. It's also an extremely iconic scene in the fact that these are their fates intertwining here. The golden trio is being unwittingly formed in this compartment right now. Obviously Hermione comes later, probably with the trolls chapter. But this is kind of their first moment.
The other thing I like about this being the moment where the Golden Trio the seed is planted, but it's also establishing Neville's connection to all of this because he's present here as well.
Yes, and it's the kind of the seeding in the back of the background characters is always running parallel to the main, which I like. She always keeps them in the foreground of your mind, even if they're not really relevant to the plot. Because Neville really isn't. I mean, he's completely insignificant for this book, with the exception of the last thing he does, effectively. But at the same time, he's always there. He's played into the flying lesson scene when he doesn't necessarily have to be. She uses recurring side characters to kind of make the world feel lived in at all times, and it endears you to the characters as well for when they become more significant later. They don't just appear when they're needed.
Also, one thing I do want to mention, like just kind of a tangent carrying on from your point about the Muggleborns reading the textbooks and kind of seeing magic as this big whole thing. When you actually stop and think about Lord Voldemort and every aspect of his MO, he's very much still that wide-eyed Muggle-born, obsessed with magic. Like, even what he turned himself into was essentially the Muggle conception of what a dark wizard was. Whereas it's like Grindelwald, his direct equivalent, a pure wizard, dark wizard, was essentially a Nazi, just a Hitler with magic. Voldemort was very specifically trying to be the Witch King of Angmar.
Very much locking down his emotions, becoming that wraith-like being, definitely. I've always enjoyed with the character how his fear of Dumbledore can almost entirely be traced down to that first, exploding cupboard or wardrobe.
That first little show
well,
of
not
force,
exploding, it got set on fire.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean, bursting into flame.
Yeah, that first little show of force where Dumbledore showed this kid that he was not to be trifled with, and to his credit, Tom Riddle took that seriously.
And he's not as an adult scared of the flaming wardrobe. It's the fact that he's, it's that emotional tie. The first time he ever encountered someone who was just better than him, in his mind at that point, and was that moment, and that carries forward for the rest of the book series. But anyway, we're getting way off topic on that one.
Yeah.
Reeling it back into
trio.
Reeling it back.
Good tangent,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. Really fun. Scabbers is also introduced in this chapter.
Yes.
I'm sorry, just the whole...
Kill it! Kill it!
Yes. Just
throw it out the window.
It's too late!
Of course, the fact that Scabbers is an animagus and not a real rat is probably a good explanation for why the sunshine, daisies, butter, mellow, turn this stupid fat rat yellow spell doesn't work.
Yeah, that's
it's
the reason.
Not.
But yeah, it's interesting because retrospectively, obviously, you're looking back at this and it's going, oh god, Pettigrew. Every time Scabbers comes up, you just cringe. But at the time, it was it was just a rat. So it's interesting how that perspective change does just kind of completely alter your perception of all of the scenes and how they play out. This is the first. I mean, the question to ask is why did he bite Goyle as well?
I think a lot of it is because Pettigrew himself is very specifically trying to endear himself to Ron. And he was clearly successful, given that Ron's whole mentality towards his rat is when the rat's around, the rat. But when the rat's missing, oh my god, where's my rat?
Yeah, it never made any sense to me that he would stick around. I mean, Pettigrew is hiding out of fear, but at the same time, I mean, you're living as a rat. Why do you have to do it specifically here in this environment? I mean, it's comfortable, I guess, but just go out and hide somewhere else. Just leave the country or whatever. You're a very strange wizard, Peter. But yeah, anyway, sorry, I jumped the gun a bit. We have Malfoy
following the yellow spell sequence. We're also introduced to the other Hogwarts houses because we've already been shown, Hufflepuff and Slytherin, but here Gryffindor and Ravenclaw are mentioned.
Very true. Yes, it's the actual other two that I'm mentioning. Yeah, you're right. It's I like that it's Hermione that introduces them as well, and Ron as well, respectively. The two kind of mindsets encapsulated by each house. Because Hermione, is like, I suppose Ravenclaw will be all right, but she's still much more interested in Gryffindor as a whole. It sets
up how she could have gone either way.
Yeah. It's a nice introduction to both the houses and their core traits of the two characters.
I think the other thing too is also the fact of showing just how important that personal choice aspect is. Because yes, the Sorting Hat will pick the house that most closely corresponds to your personality, and if you have no particular opinion in the matter, then that's the house he'll give you. But if you say you want a house,
that's the predominant choice, because it defines who you are in the first place. There's usually a reason you want that house, usually. But yeah, we get obviously Hermione's there and don't never leave at this point because they've kind of Hermione's jabbed Ron a bit for the terrible display in magic to kind of set up the tension of those two. Because whereas Harry's kind of soothing every balm that Ron has emotionally, Hermione's just unintentionally trampling on it, which just sets up the difference between the two characters. Well, the kind of early dynamic between the three. But they leave and continue to try and find Trevor, and we have Malfoy stepping in just in typical Malfoy fashion, effectively.
Yeah. Two goons side to side.
And it's like,
and immediately starts insulting Ron. Bringing up the whole family dynamic mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and it's like, you don't want to be interacting with, the Weasleys. We get the confrontation between those two.
Yeah.
Or I guess
their little scuffle.
5.
Yeah. Not really much to say about it.
No, not much.
Candy gets thrown around. Scabbers bites.
Yeah.
Bites Goyle. They get into a tough, and then the train arrives and they leave. I mean,
you can say something for the fact that Harry and Ron both step up to fight. You know, they're both while outclassed and in their own head. Harry's thinking like they're bigger than us. They still won't back down. They still will stand their ground to defend themselves. You know, this is a kind of Gryffindor bravery, yeah, and a mild kind of bond of brothers, kind of forming here against the conflict. But they leave post Scabbers biting, and Hermione comes back in again. This is the kind of scene where I think they truly established that whole Hermione trying to seek friendship thing in my head, because why would she come back here without specific reason? And she said, "Oh, I only came in because they were being childish outside," but really this is probably the biggest connection she's forged while on the train, and she's trying to reach out for that. In my mind, I mean that could be just me pulling stuff out my arse, but I do think it's likely that this is kind of the bond she was trying to reach for most, because again, she's been up and down the train clearly, and I can't imagine in my head many people reacting well to her kind of bossy approach, better than at least these two did.
And certainly believable.
Can you imagine her walking into like a group of entire compartment of third years or something and doing the same thing? It's like she's not going to have been having a good time. But yeah, it's hard to imagine that kind of thing. And I like that she does come back in, because it kind of, again, it telegraphs to me that is what's happened. It is her just reaching out and like, this is a nice compartment, at least nicer than most, and I want to come here because they're just being childish outside. That's why I'm here. Why do you ask? But at the same time, none of this is coming across on page specifically. This is all in my head, effectively. I like to think it's true, but let us know in the comments whether or not you think that lines up with your view of it, because it's certainly how I interpreted the scenario. But other than that,
well, anyway, they get their
talk about
they leave and they get their robes on, and then the train arrives, and Hagrid greets all the first years, takes them to. And just the pure, like these last few pages, just the pure wonder and just, fascination just seeps from the pages. Like I had such a nostalgia trip reading these past few pages, because it just took me back to when I was a little kid, seeing the movie for the first time and seeing them exit, and you see the castle. It's like, oh my God, it feels great.
Absolutely. The fact that Hagrid's the one that welcomes them off the train, it's such a he's just the perfect character to do this. First years, follow me, and leads them towards the lake, and that enchanted. It is kind of the whole enchanted castle moment, isn't it? I mean, this is where Hogwarts is at its most enchanting, the most starlit sky, smooth flow of the lake as you just go over and see everything described, and it is very, very magical.
Them on the boats, and they established that they take first years through the lake so they could see the whole thing, which is fantastic
to the world. Of course. I mean, one of the most.
Sorry, go ahead.
For me, there's also just kind of the ironic fact of they still go through with the boat trip at the start of the third year when it's frickin' pouring rain and the winds are howling, and it's like, oh, so that's what the introduction to Hogwarts for the 1993 year students was. Basically a storm-racked castle surrounded by floating demon wraiths. Woo!
I'd still be, impressed.
I mean, if nothing else, you got to meet the giant squid.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, really, like that sequence from the first movie that shows the castle when they're on the boats, I mean, that is one of the most iconic shots of the entire, franchise.
Absolutely. And
it says a lot. Really... I mean, it's not, in my opinion, not nearly as good and not nearly as poignant, but it is sort of the equivalent to like the binary sunset scene in New Hope to an extent.
Yeah, no, I definitely get where you're coming from there.
Very far removed. In my opinion, not nearly as good, but still. That's like the closest parallel I could think of.
The fact that you can draw parallels says a lot with how the scene was executed. And it's definitely an amazingly well-executed scene pulled from the book. It's... Again, rereading the book after the fact, it's definitely one of those scenes where you can just pull it straight from the film, put it in your head, and it's most likely going to be as good, if not better, than what you were picturing yourself. Yeah. You don't get that with every adaptation. I think that you can do that a lot with at least single point moments in the films. The overall wholes, obviously, the books are way better, but you can still use the films to enrich your experience in like specific moments, in my mind. and that's one.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't think people imagined Hogwarts looking all that different from the movie portrayal.
Definitely not. Yeah, that was another strong point about it. It did capture people's imaginations and kind of unify everyone's thoughts. I don't know anyone who thought, oh, the film's got everything wrong. You know, it was completely a mile off. I envisioned it completely differently. I've never met anyone.
Even the people who didn't like the movies still say that Hogwarts scene was good.
Yeah, Hogwarts.
Yeah, exactly. So, yep. So they Neville finds his toad.
Yes. Hey, kid, is your toad? Hagrid just throws it over to him.
So they get off the boats, go up the docks, gather all around. Hagrid leads them to a door and knocks 3 times. And that's how the chapter ends.
It's another example of one of those cliffhanger chapters where you go, no, go on, just go, open the door. Immediately change flip page. It's a nice end to it. You know, it's Hagrid introducing Harry to a larger world officially, and we're finally there. We're finally at Hogwarts. Finally get to learn what all this is about and this journey that Harry and now his friend Ron are going to go on throughout the book. I really love this chapter. It's got lots of iconic little individual moments dispersed throughout it. It's got the introduction of the Golden Trio, the introduction of the Weasley family. You know, it does so much that matters for the rest of the series.
I completely agree. It's handled really well. Like you said, so much is set up, just all around brilliant.
I mean, to say nothing of the nostalgia factor, of course, like you said about
exactly.
You said nostalgia for the castle. Like for me, that compartment scene is one of the biggest ones as well. Just being able to sit down and meet these characters for the first time and know that, you know, 20 years time for them in universe, they'll look back on like how we first met, and that's what they're picturing. It's
that's how the last book kind of ends, with them on that same train station. So seeing their kids off. I mean, imagine how they're feeling then.
Yeah, and just, you know, imagining in their heads like, oh, do you remember when? Do you remember when?
Yes.
That, guys, has been our thoughts on Chapter 6, The Journey from Platform 9 3/4. I hope you've enjoyed our comments and look forward to speaking to you for the next one. Please let us know if we want to talk about anything in greater detail in the comment section down below, and any thoughts that we've missed or haven't covered properly. And we'll see you next time. I'm Retty 4, and I still don't have an outro.
Are you sure that's a real spell? Because it's not very good.
Evan Nova 95. We hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later. And mischief managed.
Yes.
Mimble, wimble.
To say it. Goodbye.